Okay, so welcome to today's class. 3 food mistakes that are leaving you tired, bloated, and holding on to excess weight. So I found this little quote, and it's relevant to what we are talking about today. And I kind of altered this quote, so I said adapted from Nancy Muir. The human body has a ringmaster. This ringmaster controls your digestion, your immunity, your brain, your weight, your health, and even your happiness. This ringmaster is your microbiome. So that is something that we talk about a lot here on our farm. And as far as health goes, it's so important to build up our bodies and the soil on the farm from the inside out for optimal health. So a little bit about me first. I think most of you know me. I am also known as Holistic Jen. I have a YouTube channel that is Holistic Jen where I put recipes on there if you haven't seen that yet. And I got started after I went to college to get a degree in accounting. I actually started with biomedical engineering and changed majors 6 times, decided I liked accounting, and after my junior year, transferred colleges to get a degree in accounting just so I could get out. And then I knew I didn't want to be an accountant. My grandma told me I needed to do some soul searching. I was jumping around too much trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And she said, do some soul searching and I'll help you go back to school. And I went back and got a master's in health science. And so I learned all this nerdy stuff that I love, but I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't want to work at a hospital or in a gym. So I didn't know how I could go out and help people with this information. I learned all about nutrition and I loved all of that, but I didn't know how to put it together to make meals. And I think a lot of us in this group here are the same way. We know what we want to prepare or eat, but we don't know what that looks like on our plate, how to put it together to make a healthy, nutritious meal. And so I went to culinary arts school, but there it was French cuisine. So it was very high in fat and cream. And we took nutrition classes because they train people to work in hospitals and nursing homes. But it wasn't the way I wanted to eat. I thought I was eating pretty healthy. Fast forward, in 2007, we had 2 children. I was trying to eat healthy, trying to get my husband to eat healthy, and he was not. And he's on the call listening to me. But he was Mr. McDonald's. If you read my newsletter a few weeks ago, every day for lunch was a double cheeseburger with fries and a Diet Coke, supersized, because he knew that he could eat it in just a few bites and it would keep him full until he had a Snickers later on. So I tricked him into going to the doctor and I went as well. And the doctor told him he was a picture of health. His labs were normal. And so that was a fail to me. But then the doctor also told me there was something wrong with me. I had a diagnosis and long story short, it was very scary. And I just kept thinking, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be helping people with health and fitness and food. And so we quit our jobs. I was actually teaching math at the time and started our farm here and have been doing this ever since. We're finally back to our passion. Get emotional. Doing what we love. So our medical disclaimer before we get in. The information in this presentation is not intended to replace a one-on-one relationship with a qualified healthcare professional and is not intended as medical advice. It is intended as a sharing of knowledge and information from the research and experience of Jennifer Whitmire, Holistic Jen, Holistic Farms, and the experts who have contributed. We encourage you to make your own healthcare decisions based upon your research and in partnership with a qualified healthcare professional. And so I just want to make sure that if you are under the care of a doctor and you have a serious health condition, that I encourage you to take really good notes and then share this information with your practitioner and work with them as a team. Okay, so tired, bloated, and holding on to excess weight. That's what we're here for. So many clients come to me for a variety of reasons, but when we get down to it, they're usually tired and bloated and they really want to lose some weight. Now, occasionally I do have some that are very ill, and excess weight is not a problem, but bloating and tired is usually still an issue. So that's why I picked this topic for today. My purpose today is to provide you with enough information that you can start today on your own health journey. But I'm also going to tell you more about how you can get more assistance. I do have a program that I'm starting at the end of the month, and so I am going to talk about that as well. So just want to be upfront. My goal is for you to be able to use this information, but I am going to talk about my program at the end as well. So when a client comes to me, one of the first things we do is talk about food and what they are currently eating. Feeding should be simple, but is actually really complicated. So I have been studying nutrition since 1997. So for 25 years, I've been taking continuing education classes in nutrition, and yet I still get confused. And so I'm sure some of you get confused as well. We get conflicting pieces of information constantly in the news, on our Facebook, on YouTube videos and things like that. And so what is the truth? And the truth is we are all unique. There is no one size fits all, but there are some food truths that are true for all of us. And so that's what we're going to be talking about. So if we're tired and bloated and have excess weight, what is it that we want? We want more energy, we want less pain and inflammation, and we want to feel lighter, have good digestion, and be a healthy weight. So like I said, a lot of people come to me because they're sick, but this is really what they want. We want to feel good, and we want to age well. A lot of times we don't really notice what we are eating. And so with clients, I'll have them write down what they ate the last 3 days. Now, if I were going to meet with a client next Tuesday, this weekend might not be the best time for them to write down what they're eating for 3 days, because they may be going to parties and picnics for 4th of July. So it will be a typical what you're eating. And sometimes people don't write down everything that they're eating. They kind of are tricking themselves. You know, I just took a bite here or there. I don't really need to write that down, but those things can really add up. And so that's one thing that we need to look at. Something else I'll look at is, are you eating a variety of colors? Do y'all see a line going through the screen? Something strange going on with the screen. Oh well. Are you eating a variety of colors? Are you getting foods from all of the food groups? And do you even know the food groups? So I know when I was in school, we first learned about the food groups probably in kindergarten or 1st grade. And I was trying to remember the song that we would sing. I think there were only 4 food groups at the time. And the only line I can remember is the milk, which is pretty funny because milk is not even really a category now. It's milk or fortified non-dairy milk, I think is the group. So a lot of times I'll ask people if they even know what all the food groups are, because even those are confusing. And if you haven't looked at the new, it used to be My Plate and now it has changed a little bit more. So if you're not familiar, it is a plate and it shows how the foods are divided, grains. There's a protein group. It's no longer called meat because you don't have to have meat. There's the grains, the vegetables, the fruits, the proteins, and the dairy or non-fortified non-dairy is another group, and water. So if you haven't seen that in a while, I think it's under USDA. I wish I knew the link that you can look at. And there's even 3 different categories. One for people following a vegan diet, one for those not following a vegan diet, and then I think one for children. I can't remember what the 3rd one is. Anyway, that's just useful information to look at as well. Another thing I look at is, are you eating enough? And a lot of people will go, what do you mean? If I'm trying to lose weight, I'm trying to eat less calories, but you need a certain amount of calories just to breathe. And so just to sleep, you need a certain amount of calories. And so sometimes people who are trying to lose weight, they're not eating enough, and that causes stress to the body, and it can even cause them to hold on to weight. It messes up hormones, etc. And are you eating too late? And that's something that we will get into as we go along as well. One way that I like to track or have clients see what they're eating is to try an app. And so I don't know if any of you are familiar with any of these apps. I'm not sure if Fujicate will let you track, but it is very useful if you're shopping. I like Chronometer the best. It is free. And it gives you a lot of information, especially vitamins and minerals and fiber. And so if that's something that you want to look at, I like that. I think MyFitnessPal does a lot of the same. With Chronometer, I have also upgraded to the paid version for a month just to see, because it will give you even more information. I was studying oxalates at the time, and Chronometer, the paid version, will show you things like oxalates. Fujicate tells you about the ingredients in a package. I've spent hours in the grocery store with my brother. We got really nerdy looking at ingredients. And so if you do use Fujicate, it will take you a while to check out ingredients, because you'll start scanning everything, wanting to see what's in your food. But I do like that one a lot. There are some cons to using trackers. They're not the right option for everyone. If you have a history of eating disorders, then they might not be good for you. You can have a fear of eating. People who have been dieting on and off for years, a lot of times they're watching those calories, and if they see they already ate 800 calories and it's only 11 a.m., they get afraid to eat for the rest of the day. And that's something I try to help people overcome, because like I said, you do need calories. Numbers versus nutrition. On Chronometer and on MyFitnessPal, it will give you the macros, the proteins, fats, and carbohydrates that you need in a day. And if you are only paying attention to those, you might be getting those numbers, but it doesn't mean you're getting healthy foods. You can be eating the wrong foods to get the right numbers of proteins, fats, etc., and not get the nutrition. And so that's why I like the Chronometer. I like to see, are you getting all the vitamins and the minerals? And trackers can be very time consuming. It can take a long time to enter in your meals. Those of you who have used them, if you've seen like the way I typically eat, if you've seen my pages, what I post, there's a lot of food in there. And like my lunch today was a combination of 4 or 5 different salads, and it would take me forever to try to figure out how much of each ingredient I ate today. But I still like trackers. Some of the pros are it does show you the calories. So if I do not agree with the calories in, calories out equation, but if you're only eating 800 calories a day, I'm going to tell you, you need to eat more. And if you're eating 4,000 calories a day and you sit at a desk all day and don't exercise, I'm going to tell you, you need to eat less. And like I said, it will show you the vitamins and the minerals and the fiber. So the standard American eats about 12 grams of fiber a day. And we need, depending on your age and sex, between 25 and 35 grams a day. I usually eat about 80 grams of fiber a day. And so if I'm working with a client who's eating 12 grams a day, I don't want them to start eating like me tomorrow, or they will be tired and bloated and feel sick. And so trackers are really helpful if I am working on something like that. Talking about weight is very controversial. Sometimes we dance around weight. There's a lot of shame around weight. People have been bullied and people have been shamed over things like that. But excess weight can lead to health problems. Achieving a healthy weight can help you feel better as well as reduce risks. But it does have to be slow as well. I have a 5-day reset that many of you have joined, and people do lose weight in those 5 days, but for many of them, it's a drastic change from the way they're eating to the way we eat during the 5-day reset. And so it's not a lifestyle change. They do it for 5 days, they feel really good, but then they go back to the way they're eating. So it's very important that we find a way to make it long-term, long-lasting. And before we name the 3 food mistakes, let's talk about what is causing the bloat and fatigue. So what makes you feel bloated? That could be food sensitivities. It could be eating too fast. Sometimes people eat really fast and they gulp air. That can make you bloated. Maybe you're not breaking down your food. Remember, you don't have teeth beyond your mouth. And so even though we have these digestive juices, they're not going to break it down small enough. And so that can make you feel bloated. Quick diet changes, increasing fiber too fast. Like I said, if you go from 12 grams of fiber a day to 80, that's going to cause bloating, and eating too much at one meal. A lot of times I'm guilty as well. I finish everything on my plate, even though I was full several bites ago. And how does eating make us feel tired? Blood sugar spikes and swings, heavy foods, inflammatory foods, desserts, added sugars, artificial sweeteners. So one thing about artificial sweeteners, I don't know if you saw this study recently. I know actually a long time ago, I had read about artificial sweeteners and a negative calorie balance. I don't know if you've seen how using artificial sweeteners can actually make you hungry later. Dr. Greger had a video that came out this week, actually, I think, where he compared different sweeteners. He even used sucralose, stevia, monk fruit, which are all natural sweeteners, and showed how they can even cause you to eat more later in the day. If you eat foods, I don't want to jump around too much, but if we eat something, let's say we drink a Coke. I do not drink a Coke. I've had one Coke since 2013. Let's say I drink a Coke at 11 a.m. My blood sugar is going to go up and it's going to come back down and level out. I eat lunch at noon. My blood sugar is going to go up. It's going to come back down and I'm going to go on my merry way. If I drink a Diet Coke or another drink, even if it has stevia in it or monk fruit at 11, my blood sugar is not going to go up. It doesn't cause your blood sugar to go up. But when I eat my lunch at noon, my blood sugar is going to go up higher than it would have after drinking the Coke. And then it's going to go down lower. And then I'm going to start having cravings later in the day. And I'm going to end up eating more later in the day. So that is fascinating to me. That is something that I want to understand a little bit more. But I know, like for me, I even use stevia. But one thing I'm curious about is in that study, were they looking at stevia, the white processed powder, or were they looking at the stevia herb, which we can grow in our yard? The white powder has been processed, and so I'm assuming that is what they were studying, and that would be handled differently in the body. And so the health scientist in me wants to get down deep and figure out what they really looked at there. But I wanted you to see how artificial sweeteners can cause you to feel tired, those blood sugar swings, and cause us to overeat later on. And breads and simple carbohydrates, that includes pasta, that can cause blood sugar spikes and swings, which will make us tired. And why are we holding on to excess weight? A history of yo-yo dieting. Every time you restrict calories, your metabolism starts to slow down. When you go back to eating the way you were before, your metabolism does not go back up to where it was to begin with. Your set point has been lowered a little bit. You go on another diet, metabolism goes back down. You go back to eating how you are, it still doesn't go back up to where, so you can see how you're lowering and lowering your metabolic rate. And so that is one way that we hold on to weight. Eating high glycemic foods. So glycemic foods, that is how well your body handles sugars, how a certain food, I should say. So we eat an orange, your blood sugar will go up and down a certain way. But if you drink orange juice, which has a higher glycemic load, your blood sugar is going to go much higher and drop lower. Eating heated oils. If you haven't seen my video, I have a video on YouTube about why I don't use heated oils. They do cause inflammation. That inflammation lasts a long time. And so that is one way that we hold on to excess weight. For instance, when we eat, let's say I eat French fries today, the inflammation that is created may not go away for quite a while. I don't remember the half-life, but then maybe I'll eat French fries once a week. That inflammation that was created today is not going to be gone when I eat the French fries again next week. And so you can see that inflammation is going to constantly build. Amy Lou, I just saw your question. Please show us the name of the app. I'm not sure which app. Do you want to chat? You want to type it in the chat, or you want to just wait till the end?
The one that you mentioned is free that you can put on your cell phone.
Oh, chronometer.
Spell it.
Yes. Let me type it. Chronometer. Okay. Okay, so other things that can cause us to hold on to excess weight: dehydration, eating processed foods, eating foods with preservatives in them, eating while we're stressed. We're going to get into that in a minute. Eating inflammatory foods, foods that have colorings in them, eating late at night, alcohol and plastics in our food, plastic cooking utensils, storing foods in plastics, those things can also cause us to hold on to excess weight. And we'll talk about those too. So what are the 3 food mistakes? Number 1 is eating foods that lead to insulin resistance. And this, I'm going to get into each one. I'm just naming them all. Foods that lead in insulin resistance. Number 2 is eating while stressed or late at night. Number 3 is eating foods that maybe aren't really foods. They're food-like. And so I'm going to talk about how to identify those foods. All right, number 1, eating foods that could lead to insulin resistance. So these are foods that are high in bad fats and high simple carbs. And so I don't like to use the good and bad, but there are fats that are more harmful for us than others. And so we're going to talk about fats that are not the same and carbs that are not always the same. First, we need to know what is insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is when we can't get the sugar into a cell. And that is caused by a variety of reasons. There is some controversy in the research there. One theory is that high fat diets cause insulin resistance, and one is that high carb diets cause insulin resistance. Either way, we don't need to eat a high amount of fats or a high amount of simple carbs either. And so what happens is we have sugar in the blood. Everything we eat is broken down into glucose. That glucose is passed into our bloodstream. So that's how we have blood sugar. And then insulin is kind of like a taxi, or maybe a MARTA, and it picks up the blood, the sugar, the glucose, and drives it into the cell. And so if the insulin is not getting into the cell, we're not getting that sugar, which is energy, into the cell. That's insulin resistance, and that's caused by certain foods. Insulin resistance can lead to a variety of health conditions as well as weight gain. It can be caused by, I put diet on here. I don't know why diet wasn't on this graph, but it can be caused by obesity, being inactive, genetics, which we can't change, but our environment can change how genetics are influenced, aging, medications, and rare disorders. And those lead to diabetes, PCOS, atherosclerosis, dyslipidemia, and hypertension. And so we want to make sure we are watching our body as far as insulin resistance, not only for weight gain, but for disease prevention as well. So a lot of times I'll be asked, what comes first, weight gain or insulin resistance? And the answer is both. Both can lead back and forth. If we look at weight gain first, we can gain a lot of weight just from stress. Stress affects how our body handles different things. In another webinar I did, I talked about how when we are stressed out, it doesn't matter what has caused the stress, cortisol goes up and sugar is brought into the bloodstream so that it is ready to move into muscles so you can run. So if you are in danger, you need to be able to run. Your body doesn't know that you're stressed because you're in traffic or someone just said something wrong to you. It can be any kind of stress. Your body doesn't know that. Your body just knows stress is danger. And so that brings the sugar into your cells. into your bloodstream, and keeps it from going into the cells because it wants it to go into the muscle. That can cause weight gain. Insulin resistance can occur if we are under stress for long periods of time. That blood glucose is going to stay high, and we're keeping the sugar from going into the cells. And so the sugar, remember, sugar is crystals. Like, have you ever made rock candy? Sugar has sharp crystals, and if it's in your blood vessels, it's bouncing around and it's causing inflammation in your blood cells, and that inflammation can lead to weight gain. So what should happen when we eat? So this is a stomach, and you can see the stomach is full of these fruits and vegetables. This person didn't chew at all, did they? What should happen is we eat, digestion begins in the mouth. We start chewing our food, enzymes are released, the food passes down into the stomach, and as the stomach starts to expand, nerve endings outside of your stomach signal to your brain, we're eating, and tell your brain when it is time to stop eating. As the food is broken down, the glucose particles are passed into your bloodstream, and that is what signals your pancreas to release insulin to come and carry the blood glucose into the cells. So that is what should happen. So how does insulin resistance cause us to eat more? I think I already said this actually, but if the sugar is not getting into the cells, then our body thinks we need to eat more and we need sugar for energy. And so if we are insulin resistant, the blood sugar is hitting the cells, it's not going in, the cells are saying, hey, I'm hungry, and it's going to start causing sugar cravings and carb cravings, because energy is what the cells want. And the fastest form that they can get it is from glucose. And so it wants you to eat foods that are going to break down quickly for the glucose. So that's why we want things like muffins and cakes. The cells don't care if it's nutritious, they just want that sugar. And so it's telling us to eat these high sugar foods for energy. That is if you're insulin resistant. What happens is we'd say things like, oh, but it tastes so good, I want to eat it. Have you ever said any of these things? I know I've said several of these quite recently. I say I can't eat another bite, but that dessert looks so delicious, and so I eat it. Or it's only one more bite, or there's not enough left to save for later. Or maybe I don't like leftovers, so I'm gonna go ahead and eat it now. And so we start ignoring signals. We start ignoring the hunger, and we don't let ourselves get hungry as well. So not all fats are equal. The low fat craze of the 90s, I think that was the 90s, is when we had like the Snackwell cookies. What was the name of the yogurt place? Anyway, all the low fat frozen yogurts and things like that. We started getting afraid to eat fat. Fat is high in calories. We need to cut calories. And so we shouldn't eat fat. But that's not true all the time. We do need some fats, but we need the right fats. So fat is bad when it is heated. Cooking with fat, cooking with oils, that creates inflammation. High trans fats, those are your fats in muffins, cakes, and cookies, especially if they are store-bought, commercially prepared pastries and things like that. Those are bad fats. And then what are healthy fats? Our brain needs healthy fats, and healthy fats can come in the form of, actually I have a picture. Your fatty fish. I am vegan, I don't eat fatty fish. I do have oil here, and I'll talk about oil in a second. Nuts and seeds, avocados and olives. So even fruits, olives and avocados are a fruit. They can even contain fat. As a matter of fact, all whole foods contain proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. And so when someone, like if we talk about a potato, a lot of times people call them carbs, but they do actually have some protein and some fat in the potatoes. Same with bananas. Bananas do have some protein and some fat, but we want the whole foods. So when I look at this oil is only fat. It has been stripped of several nutrients and we're left with just the fat. And so I don't recommend eating oil, even though it's in this picture, if you're trying to lose weight. And I'll talk about that in a few minutes. But these are all healthy fats. We do have to make sure that we're getting the right balance of these fats, which I'll also talk about in a minute. So for oils, we'd never want to heat them. They are not essential, which means even though we do need fats, they don't have to come in the form of oils. Oils are only fat. They've been stripped of the fiber. When they are processed, they lose a lot of their vitamins. And so that's why it's important to get them from whole foods, from nuts and seeds, avocados, olives, and your fatty fish. And I hate calories, but I love using demonstrations like this. If I were to, let's say I'm eating a salad and I decide I'm going to put a tablespoon of oil on my salad. So most salad dressings actually have more than a tablespoon of oil. But this tablespoon of oil is going to give me a little bit of that nice mouth feel. It may make my dressing a little creamier, but it's not going to make me feel any fuller. It's not going to provide fiber, and it's going to add 120 calories to my salad. If I instead put a half of an avocado on there, you can see it's about 40 more calories, but it's going to add a lot of fiber. This picture doesn't really show it, but that bright green in here is so nutritious and so good for us. So we're getting a healthy fat, we're getting fiber, we're getting loads of minerals, and it's going to help me feel a little bit fuller. And if I swap that for a cup of olives is a lot of olives, that is really going to fill me up as well. Give me a healthy fat, give me lots of vitamins and minerals as well. And we have to get the right balance of fats. So the wrong fats are those that are in your commercial foods, heated oils, and animal fats other than fatty fish, and in processed oils, which we talked about. We did not talk about processed oils. If you do use oils, number one, don't use them if you're trying to lose weight. If you are at a healthy weight and you want to add some, then you want to make sure that you do not heat them. You can add them to a salad. You could add them on top of a food that has already been cooked, but never heat it. And make sure that it is a cold pressed oil and virgin, meaning it hasn't been processed too many times and hasn't been heated, because heating destroys the nutrients in there. So if you do use oils, because you are a healthy weight, don't heat them and buy cold pressed. The right fats are those in whole food form. I like nuts, seeds. Ooh, I don't know where I am. Here we go. Nuts and seeds, fruits and vegetables. I can't read my own screen. And grains. There are healthy fats in grains as well. And so how can you eat these and not gain weight? So we're worried about fats and not gaining weight. My favorite example is eating nuts in the shell. So if I'm eating nuts that are in the shell, I'm going to get tired of cracking them and eating them. And so I'm not going to eat too many unless they are roasted and salted. If they are roasted and salted, food scientists know that is going to cause you to eat more food. That's why they are roasted and salted. And if you pick up like a can of roasted nuts, they usually have an added form of sugar, or even maltodextrin, because that is going to cause you to eat more and you're going to buy more. So we want raw nuts and seeds. They're going to fill you up better. Calories in versus calories absorbed. If I'm eating raw nuts, I crack them and I eat them, my teeth are not going to break them all the way down. And so not everything's going to be absorbed. A lot of them are going to pass through, because remember, we don't have teeth beyond our mouth. They're going to break down a little bit from stomach acid and things, but a lot of them are going to pass through. So I may be eating 100 calories in nuts and seeds, but I'm not absorbing all of those calories. There's also fiber in nuts and seeds and olives and avocado, and that fiber is also going to be holding on to nutrients. So I'm not going to absorb all of those calories. If I process those nuts and seeds, olives, avocado, into a nut butter or a seed butter or guacamole or hummus, those are going to be kind of pre-chewed. They've already been broken down, and I'm going to absorb a lot more of the calories from that than I am from the whole food. And so those can still be nutritious choices, but we need to not eat as much as we would have. Also, if I have a handful, I don't know if any of you have ever made nut butter. I don't know why I picked walnuts, because walnut butter is not a common thing. If I picked up a handful of walnuts and I eat them versus I throw them in a blender and make a walnut butter, that's going to be a very little amount of walnut butter. When you grind that down, you don't have a lot there. And all that's going to be absorbed. If I want, a couple of tablespoons, I'm probably going to have to throw in a couple of handfuls. And so that's going to be a lot more nuts that way as well. And so also we're talking about insulin resistance. We have to remember that not all carbs are equal. So both of these on the right and the left are all carbohydrates. And so when people say don't eat carbs, I would tell you definitely do not eat the things that are on the left, but absolutely eat the things that are on the right. And so I am definitely pro carbohydrate. I want you to eat carbohydrates, but I don't want you to eat the ones that are on the left. Sodas are out, chips are out, pasta's out, breads, cookies, candies. Those things are all going to cause sugar spikes and are going to lead to insulin resistance. Now, if you want to occasionally have some pasta, very rarely, it is a highly processed food. Even if it's a whole wheat pasta or something like that, it's still highly processed. It doesn't look like the wheat seed. So those foods, I tell you, you probably need to avoid, especially if you're trying to lose weight. The foods on the right are all very high in fiber. Most of them are very high in water, especially if you look at the zucchini and the peppers and tomatoes, those are high in water. And so they're going to fill you up with the fiber, provide lots of vitamins and minerals that you can only get in these types of foods. And so looking at the picture here, I can't really tell what all of these are. I would not eat the pasta at the top. Pasta is a processed flour, like I said, and processed flours are treated like sugar in your body. They're already pre-chewed. They're broken down so small that they're going to produce glucose very rapidly in your body, causing sugar spikes. The breads, depending on the breads, I do make some seed breads that are really good. And those, because they're made with seeds and have a lot of seeds in them, they do slow down sugar spikes. It looks like we have some grains here. Those are carbohydrates. Beans are very healthy, very high in fiber. Even the banana. So one thing that I like to do with clients is have them track their glucose. They'll use a glucometer. Recently, I've used CGM. I can't remember what that stands for. Anyway, it's a monitor that you wear that tracks your blood sugar while you're eating. And some of these foods do cause a sugar spike if you eat them on their own. But if you combine them with other foods, then that slows down the absorption. So like bananas, those are something that will cause my blood sugar to spike. But if I only eat part of the banana and I eat it with some nuts and seeds, then I don't get that blood sugar spike. So sometimes we have to look at what we're eating it with. Okay, so number one was eating foods that could lead to insulin resistance. Number two is how you eat. If you're eating late at night, eating during a stressful event, even during a stressful conversation or a scary show, those are going to affect your sugar and your cortisol, your digestion and your sleep, and a growth hormone. And I want to talk about growth hormone. That one is very important as far as weight and our health are concerned. So these things all raise our cortisol. Like I said earlier, when we are stressed, our body doesn't know why we are stressed. It thinks we're in danger. And how is that related to eating late at night? I mentioned that because of the growth hormone. Growth hormone builds and repairs muscles and stimulates fat burning. It promotes insulin sensitivity. So it makes the cells want to take in more glucose And the first surge of growth hormone happens during your first 3 hours of sleep, and it will not be released if insulin is in your blood. So if we're eating while we're stressed, cortisol, remember cortisol is going to come out. If cortisol is out, our body needs to be ready to run. So sugar is going to be in our blood and not moved into our cells. The sugar has to be available to get into our muscles in case we need to run. As long as that happens, sugar stays in the blood, insulin stays out ready, growth hormone is not going to come out, which means we're going to be burning carbohydrates. We're not going to be burning fat. And so it's very important to relax, number one, before you go to bed, and to give your body time to eat before you go to bed, time to digest, and your blood sugar to stabilize before you go to bed as well. So if you eat, let's say you finish eating your dessert at 9 and you go to bed at 10, your blood sugar is still too high when you go to bed. And so you're not going to get that growth hormone until that sugar is finished going into the cells. We go through probably 4 or 5 sleep cycles a night, usually about every hour and a half is about average. And so you want to make sure that the insulin has already done its job before you go to bed, so fat burning can come out right away when you go to sleep, to help clean everything up, build your muscle if you've been working out, and help you sleep better as well. And so that's my next slide, eating late. So you don't want to snack before bed, don't want to eat dessert or dinner too late, because your insulin will still be too high and your body will be more likely to store the fat instead of burning the fat. If we eat while we're stressed out, remember the body doesn't know why we're stressed. The cortisol goes up. When cortisol is up, sugar is in the bloodstream. When sugar is in the bloodstream, those crystals are hitting your artery linings, which creates inflammation, which creates bloating and fatigue. And one thing a lot of people do to help with growth hormone is intermittent fasting. So I wanted to talk about this some. So intermittent fasting focuses on using growth hormone. You benefit from the fast. You don't have the blood sugar out there if you're fasting. So growth hormone is out and you're burning fat. So that is one of the benefits. When growth hormone is out, we're burning our fat. But it's not a one size fits all. Remember from the beginning, we are all very unique. If you are someone whose blood sugar is not balanced, you have blood sugar issues, intermittent fasting may be a challenge for you. That's something you need to slowly work into. And for some autoimmune diseases, intermittent fasting is not right for everyone. One way intermittent fasting works is, as far as timing goes, let's say, so I typically eat breakfast at 6 a.m. and I typically finish eating around 9. And so I really don't give myself an awful lot of time to fast between 9 p.m. and 6 a.m. So that we can call that intermittent fasting. I'm not eating from 9 p.m. until 6 a.m. We eat very late because of the farm. But if I don't snack during the day, then I'm giving my body time to rest and create some growth hormone throughout the day. So I eat breakfast at 6. I'm usually finished. I actually take about an hour to eat breakfast, which sounds silly, but I don't eat anything between 7 and noon. And so that's a 5-hour break right there. And then I don't eat again between lunch and dinner if I can. Sometimes I can't make it that long. And so that's another fasting. And so my sugar will go up and down after I eat, but then I don't eat a snack in between. You can see if we snack throughout the day, we're keeping the blood glucose high, the sugar is not going into the cells, and our growth hormone is not coming out to burn fat for us. And so we don't want to snack throughout the day if we're trying to lose weight. Oh, and I wanted to talk about what breaks the fast. So a lot of times I'll talk to someone, they say they intermittent fast, they don't eat until noon every day. But when they get up in the morning, they have a cup of coffee at 6 with the creamer in it. Well, when you put creamer in your coffee, you're breaking your fast. If you drink a green juice, you know, at 6 or 7 in the morning, you just broke your fast. If it's something, anything like that, is going to break your fast. So you have to be careful what you're using if you do want to wait till noon. And I wanted to say with the timing, it's usually better to eat early and finish early because, like I said, you want to be fasting a little bit before you go to bed. You want the insulin to have already done its job before you go to bed. And so eating earlier in the day and finishing earlier in the day can be better. And number 3 is it food? So we want to pay attention to what we're eating. Is it a processed food like the pasta or a processed food that comes in boxes? We'll talk about those. Are there chemicals in the food? Is it really a food or is it food-like? And are there plastics in the food? All of those can lead to weight gain. And I can see some of you are writing. I don't want to go too fast. The next one is a picture. So we're going to look at a picture of processed foods. And so in these, so not all of these are considered, they're all processed, but in different ways. Down the bottom. So if I point to something, just nod. Can you see me pointing to it? Or is it just me? You can't see me pointing. Okay, so at the bottom, it looks like there's some canned fish there. So maybe that's some canned salmon. And I don't eat that. I do eat a whole food plant-based diet, vegan, mostly raw. And I know that's not right for everyone. So in here we have a canned fish. And so even though that is processed, that could be a healthy choice if it is a wild caught salmon, maybe. I know there is a brand of tuna that is supposed to be really healthy. That is a young baby tuna, which could be difficult for some people as far as if you're eating for humane reasons, another topic. But if we look here, a lot of times items that are in the bags, you know, I'm thinking like ramen noodles, ultra processed. We have some oils in the back that are processed oils, and pasta are processed, juices. Anytime you buy a store-bought juice to be sold, it is heated, and that heating destroys the vitamins and minerals, which is why sometimes they add vitamin C back to them, but it's basically sugar water. And so store-bought juices, you might as well just be drinking a Coke. I don't recommend store-bought juices. Juice your own, or go to a juice bar if there's something like that close to you. But processed foods, and at the top I put bags, boxes, sugar granules, white stevia, and flour. Those are all treated like sugar in your body, and they cause a sugar spike, which can lead to weight gain. So my number 1 rule is always read the ingredients. Always, 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 always. Even me, I am guilty myself. Ingredients change even on your favorite products. And so if you haven't checked the ingredients on one of your favorite products recently, I encourage you to go back. The label will look the same, but the ingredients have changed a little bit. And so always look. Do you know what those ingredients are? So if you don't recognize what some of the ingredients are, then don't buy it. Do some research and figure out what it is first. That Fujicate app can help with that. Are there 5 or less ingredients? But that's usually my rule. Sometimes if I look at something like, there could be a granola bar that has lots of different nuts and seeds and things like that, that can still be a healthier choice than other granola bars. And so maybe it has more than 5 ingredients, but I know what all the ingredients are, and they're all whole foods. Is there any oil in the product? If there is oil in the product and it was heated, then you know it's going to cause inflammation. Is flour an ingredient? Flour is treated like sugar in your body. Is sugar or another name for sugar an ingredient? And so it does take a while to figure out all the different names. They get really tricky with labels. Also, on the ingredient list, they have to list everything in the order of how much of that ingredient is in there. So if I buy a product that has sugar and maltodextrin in there, maltodextrin is a form of sugar. It's possible that if they, instead of breaking it up into 2 sugar products, use 1, sugar would be the number 1 ingredient in there, which is why they put 2 forms of sugar. There could be honey, maple syrup, and something else. And they're just doing that to move them farther down on the ingredient list. So we have to be careful and look and make sure there's not more than one type of sugar in a product, if you even buy a product with sugar in it. And are there plastics in the foods and beverages? If we buy food that is in plastic, if that food has been warmed, then there are going to be microplastics in your food. They are showing in babies and in umbilical cords, say that correctly, there's plastics in there. So babies are being loaded with plastics. I had a test taking classes. I don't know if y'all know this, but I'm taking some classes, nutritional endocrinology practitioner training. And I had took a test that I was studying, and it showed that I have a lot of plastic in my body. And so I've been paying much closer attention to that. Before I was diagnosed with my autoimmune disease, I used to reuse water bottles, like a Dasani bottle. I don't even know if Dasani was around back then, but I would drink my water, use that, and then I would put that in the dishwasher and fill it up again the next day and drink it. And someone stopped me and said, you shouldn't be doing that. And I thought they were crazy. But anytime plastic is heated, microplastics come out. And so when I put water in there, then I was getting those plastic particles into the water and then drinking the plastics. The same thing with baby bottles, which they've changed baby bottles. These food containers in this picture, if you order food and they put your leftovers, if they're hot, into that plastic, then you've got some plastic in your food. If you have a plastic water bottle in your car and you have your drink in there, then plastics are being released into your food. And if you took my liver class, you learned that when we eat things like this, the body doesn't recognize plastic. So the body sees it, it goes, what the heck is this? It might be dangerous. So it wraps it in fat and it stuffs it somewhere until it can figure out how to deal with it later on. And so these plastics get stored in fat. And a lot of times they are also can affect different endocrinological organs. I'm not saying that correctly. Anyway, it can affect your hormones. And so we don't want too many plastics that can throw off hormones, which can lead to weight gain. So with plastics, number one, don't put anything plastic in your dishwasher. That heats it, cools it, those microparticles get on the surface and then they get into your foods. Don't microwave plastic if you use a microwave. Don't microwave a food in plastic. Don't use plastic wrap on top of your food in the microwave. And if you use cling wrap, which I do use cling wrap, make sure that you don't put it on anything hot. And so I wait till my food cools and then I'll put cling wrap on top. There are other products you can use that are better. There's some beeswax cloth things that you can use that are better. Studies are showing that silicone doesn't break down. There are some silicone covers that you can use as well, but just don't put it on when it's hot. And I was listening to a doctor talk the other day, and he said, even if you go to like a coffee shop, you get a hot tea or a hot coffee, and first of all, that paper cup is usually lined with plastic, and then they put a plastic lid on top. So the steam goes up, heats that lid, those micro particles go into your drink. So then you're drinking plastic. So we need to find ways to not get those plastics into our body. Work on ways to avoid that. So today, what you should do is eat real whole food. So eat foods as close to whole as you can. Eat your last meal or snack early. Don't eat late at night. Give your body breaks during the day instead of snacking. So when I first learned about nutrition, I thought we were supposed to eat breakfast and then a snack around 10 and lunch and a snack around 3 and then dinner. And so I was never letting my body rest in between there so that growth hormone could come out. Always read your ingredients and eat in a relaxed state. So something that we do here at our house before dinner is 10 minutes before dinner is quiet time. I put my yoga mat on the floor and I do legs up the wall. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that, but I've been doing this almost 2 years now. Every night, 10 minutes before dinner, Shane goes and gets a shower. Carly has quiet time, and we all just are nice and relaxed when it's time to sit down for dinner. If we are not relaxed, remember the cortisol is going to be up, the sugar is not going to be carried into the cells. And so it's very important to relax, even for better digestion. So don't eat foods that lead to insulin resistance. So pay attention to things like flours and pastas. Don't eat close to bedtime so that the growth hormone can come out. Make sure you're not eating chemicals, and make sure you're not heating plastics or eating and drinking out of plastic containers. I'll let y'all finish. I'm gonna take a sip. Before I go on, I see Emily, you posted, you made the recipe for dish tonight for friends with zucchini, eggplant, red bell pepper, and white navy beans. What do you dip in it? It's a dip made out of those ingredients?
Is the what?
Well, the recipe was.
I forgot what the title of it was because it's down in my kitchen.
But,
Okay. But I mean, it's in these little balls that you bake at 350 for like an hour.
I usually will have a marinara sauce.
Oh, okay, marinara. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Okay, so my purpose today was for you to be able to use this information to beat bloat, recover from fatigue, and start losing stubborn weight. So stop eating foods that lead to insulin resistance. Pay attention to how and when you eat, and only eat real foods. And so one of the things that I struggled with when I was learning was how to actually put this into practice. So hopefully you already have some strategies, but if not, I do have a program that is starting in a few weeks, Create a Healthier You. During this program, we will drop stubborn weight, kick your sugar habit to the curb, beat bloat, rebuild your gut microbiome, and find what foods are right for you. It's a 10-week group program where we are going to cleanse toxins, work on regenerating your health, work on the microbiome. We are going to eliminate extra weight and activate the healing power within. We're going to learn about different toxins as we're cleaning up the environment. We're going to be using some of the methods I learned from the School of Natural Healing and the Living Foods Institute to help cleanse. Just like I talked about in my liver class, we're going to be working from the bottom up. We'll be, and I'll get into that. We'll be transferring your health and energize your body and your mind. And we will easily prepare delicious, healthy foods and create habits for lasting results. So it's going to be over 10 weeks. So by the end of 10 weeks, you have created some habits that you can put into place and that will last a lifetime. There is a live class every Wednesday and a live cooking demo and Q&A every Sunday. During the live cooking demos, we'll be prepping for the week. And so you can prep along, you can watch me prep some of my foods, and you'll be able to ask questions. There will be lots of group support. Have a special private Facebook group. There will be email support as well. During weeks 1 and 2, we will start with the summer reset. My summer reset is 5 days. And so you'll start with that, eliminating gluten and sugar and alcohol and processed foods and red meats. And that will continue on beyond the 5 days into week 2. And we'll learn more about that in that live class. During weeks 3 and 4, we will begin cleansing and rebuilding gut health. Like I said, and like in Dr. Christopher's, you begin with the colon. We want to heal the colon and digestive tract first. Then we work on the urinary health and the adrenals, cleansing and rebuilding. And then weeks 7 and 8, we'll be doing a deep dive detox. So this will be gentle but effective. I do have several clients who have serious illnesses. And so it is something that will not be dangerous, and we'll be using food During week 7 and 8, it will be mostly a raw fruit and vegetable diet. There will be plenty of calories there because I am someone who makes sure that we eat enough food. And then during weeks 9 and 10, we add foods back and create long-term habits from there. Create a Healthier You is valued at $1,497 for the 10 full weeks. That includes all the live classes and everything. But because it's the first time I'm offering it for $497. And it includes a bonus, which is the 5-day fall reset to seal the deal on this new permanent lifestyle. My goal is for you to be able to be the role model in that fall reset. By then, you're already a pro. And so that is why I threw that bonus in at the end. And if you sign up today, July 1st, you also get a free 30-minute private session with me before we start, just to make sure that we have your goals and everything set in place before we begin. So for more information, I have a link that I can put in the chat if you would like more information about that. And there's more information also in the email that went out today. So Donna asked what time will the classes be? So the classes are Wednesdays at 3, I believe. Actually, that's not set in stone. I was thinking 3 o'clock on Wednesdays, on Sundays, probably 3 o'clock as well. I have not selected a time for that. And so it depends on how many are in the group too. We may be able to be a little bit more flexible with that. They will be recorded. I will have slides like this. And so I will be using Zoom and record them as well during that. And I'll probably be doing them on Facebook as well, but you can't see slides, which is why I won't be doing that. So I want to have a little Q&A, but I'll stop the recording in case anyone would like to not be on camera to talk. I can figure out how to stop the recording. There we go.